Audio check. Audio check.
This is the Aspen City Council regular meeting for August 8th, 2023. That's a call to order. Can we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Guth.
Here.
Councillor Howenstein.
Here.
Councillor Rose.
Here.
Mayor Tory.
Here as well. Ward, just so you know, on that very first opening there, you did have a little bit of a glitch. I don't know if, you know, if service struggles a little bit where you are, you might have to turn off your video, but we'll let you know as we go.
I'll save you all and turn off video now.
But we like the photo.
Easier than I thought. We have a scheduled public appearance this evening. We have a new police officer with the APD. This is Josh Bennett. Before he comes up, we're going to do a swearing in, but I'm going to ask Chief Ferber to come up and maybe say a few words about the latest edition.
Thank you, Mayor Tory and Council. This is the new member of our police department, Josh Bennett. Josh was raised in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he came to the Roaring Fork Valley in 1999. He's a resident of the city of Aspen, which is very exciting for us. Josh comes to us with more than 15 years of law enforcement experience, primarily with the Pitkin County Sheriff's Office, and the team has been trying to get him to come work with us for a number of years, so we're really happy that he has made that decision. He is here tonight with his wife, Nikki, who is in the back of the audience along with her mother and her father. Nikki is also a new team member of ours, and she's part of our professional staff. Also here are Maddox, Logan, and Peyton, and they also have a daughter, Alina, but she could not make it tonight. The last thing I just want to it's just such a challenging career, and it's really inspiring to see someone like you stay in this field for 15 years and commit yourself to our organization now.
Thank you. With that, before we get comments from you, if you'd join me right up here in front. I'm sure you can get over that. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Josh Bennett,
Do solemnly affirm that I will support
do solemnly affirm that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
and the ordinances of the City of Aspen,
and the ordinances of the City of Aspen,
that I will faithfully perform the duties
that I will faithfully perform the duties
of a police officer of the City of Aspen, Colorado,
of a police officer of the City of Aspen, Colorado,
and that I will be mindful
and that I will be mindful
of the mission, values, and philosophy
of the mission, values, and philosophy
of the Aspen Police Department
of the Aspen Police Department
in providing respectful, thoughtful, professional services
in providing respectful, thoughtful, professional services
to any person seeking assistance from me.
to any person seeking assistance from me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to all of you showing up, my family, friends, coworkers. It has been a long career for me at 15 years, and I've known this team for several of those years, and I'm just extremely excited to be part of it. So thank you.
That'll bring us to citizens' comments and petitions this evening. If there's members of the public that wish to comment to City Council about items not scheduled for a public hearing this evening, we do ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes to give everybody an equal opportunity to speak. I see David Scruggs. Yep, sorry. I see David Scruggs online. Mr. Scruggs. You can unmute yourself if you can, Mr. Scruggs.
Can you hear me now, Mayor?
We've got you.
Okay, thank you. David Scruggs, 212 West Hopkins. I have appeared before the city council several times since October of 2022 requesting that there be hybrid virtual HPC, Historic Preservation Commission meetings. All of the historic preservation members are for it. All the members of the previous council and the present council are for it. I'm just checking back to see where we are and if we can't get that done. And that segues into my second point. There was a application for affordable housing at a historic resource site at 205 West Main that began in October of 2022. There were 5 hearings regarding that between October and July. 3 of them ended in a tie vote, 1 of them in a decline, and 1 of them in approval. The final one was an approval on July 26th. And there's a lot of confusion among the HPC members as to what, under a new ordinance that was passed in October of 2022 when the moratorium was passed, what their responsibility is. That's why it took 5 meetings. And the final approval was by a 4-3 vote, a split vote. In fact, I think they've requested to have a working session with you concerning this statute on September the 5th. But what I'm requesting on behalf of the neighbors is that you consider calling up that action of the HPC of July 26th. It will be on your next agenda, October 22nd. And the reason is for the council to give the HPC some directive concerning this new statute The confusion is whether or not they follow the HPC guidelines or they just approve affordable housing. The neighbors are not opposed to affordable housing, but think you can do both, that you can protect the historic asset and also provide affordable housing. This is the first property or first application that's come up under this new ordinance, and I just believe it needs to have your review. So the neighbors for which I speak and myself are requesting that you consider call up of that action at your meeting on August 22nd. Call up of the review of 205 West Main. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Scruggs.
Thanks, David.
Did we see that call-up notice on our last agenda? He said that the meeting was July 22nd.
No, it will come back to you as a call-up sometime in the future. I don't know exactly what the date is. I didn't think it was August 22nd, but it will come to you. I'm not sure it's been set yet.
Yes, I believe it's being proposed for August 22nd. We are waiting on to see if we're going to have minutes from the HPC discussion from the meeting at which they approved their aspect or their part of the review process. But we do have that thanks to the hard work of the clerk's department, and we should be ready August 22nd.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Scruggs, just to respond real quickly to you. One, you're right. We all do support the ability to do hybrid meetings. We've been working towards that, but we've had our own glitches in some of our own meetings. We are unable to both staff and technically get it done at this time, but we are still working towards it. As for your request for a call-up, we will see this at potentially at our August 22nd meeting. That is the call-up procedure when we will see that. I don't expect us to be calling that up during a work session when we meet with HPC. Thank you so much for your continued input. We appreciate you. Other members of the public this evening that wish to speak, I'll look in room. I've got a hand in the back that I'll start with.
Good evening, and thank you again for your time. I'm Patty Kravitz, a homeowner and board member at the Centennial Condominiums. I'm here with a lawsuit update. We are in a fact-finding and discovery phase. Why? Because city staff has not wanted to believe the facts of the case. Here are the facts. The Centennial HOA has done its best to maintain its property. We've outlined this extensively at other times and places and also at previous meetings, so I won't rehash it now. You can visit voiceofcentennial.com for an outline of the facts and history of our situation, and even more documentation and data is available at centennialdisclose.org. The bottom line is that when something was so poorly built, no amount of maintenance can sustain it. This case is really about the deed restrictions, emphasis on the restrictions. As homeowners, we are restricted from investing in our property beyond a mere 10% of the purchase price. Yes, we can spend more, but it's not an investment if you can't recoup it. The purchase and sale prices are set by APSHA, and there's no allowance for what happens with a property in our situation. APSHA is exploring how to handle these problems at other properties, including the Woody Creek Trailer Court, but for some reason, the Centennial homeowners are being forced to use costly lawyers and time-consuming courtrooms instead of sitting down for reasonable two-way conversations and finding real solutions. I believe taxpayers should be appalled at what the city is spending on legal costs in lieu of having discussions. We should all be on the same side here in trying to save employee housing units. Instead, every time we ask to have a discussion, we are either told no or we are shut down when we try to present facts. And this happened before we lifted the stay on the litigation. And it's happening again now. So we are forced to spend more Centennial homeowner money, and the city spends taxpayer money, and it doesn't have to be like this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do feel like I got to clarify a couple of things. And I'm not placing any blame or anything like that, but there are people that put investment and reinvestment into their homes that's not recoupable as well. So not every dollar that you put into the maintenance of your home is something that is guaranteed to be recouped. Other than that, no, it's okay. I just want to make clear points. And the other thing that you said that I just don't necessarily agree with is that the city keeps rebuffing you about conversations. For me, I know for a fact that I've been involved in conversations for 20 years, and I still am working on it. So it's just not a fair characterization to say that we are turning our backs or anything like that, and city staff as well is not in that capacity. We're happy to keep talking with you, very happy to keep talking with you. Other member of the public to speak this evening? Yep, Betty?
Me?
Yep.
Got another APSHA thing. I'm not used to speaking like this. So
Great.
anyway.
I'll remind you that we do ask that you keep to about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
I revised multiple times. Okay, so people know me as Betty Hoops because I have a local business with hoops and fitness and, oh, my readers. Okay, Aspen's been my home since '91. I could spend the next 3 minutes giving details of a lot of unprofessional and quite rude treatment from communication over the past year with trying to resubmit and keep my rental at Truscott, which I've had for about 20 years. For about 15 years, my main source of income has been massage. I work on clients in their homes, and most of them are in Pitkin County. I'm here for two reasons. One mainly is, as you know, and Ward knows, I think I was still waiting to hear an email response from him. I know he said I could file an appeal if I want, but I would love to get an answer as to why Matthew, the executive director, has deemed one of my part-time jobs as a professional musician in Pitkin County as a, air quote, hobby, which he said, even though I had showed him invoices and proof of payment for establishments that we performed in, like the Belly Up, T Lazy 7, Aspen Sun Deck, through Ski-Co, all of those things. The hours were, of course, minimal because he was looking over off-season time, but yet it is a job, and I was only asking for having him add those hours of on-site, not to mention it's a four-piece band, and my job is doing most of the marketing. So I take videos of every show, I edit them, I post all on social platforms, I update the websites, and I handle contact submissions. I don't handle the LLC, the payments, the contracts. That's for the other guys. So I feel that with given all of those things, I am very curious as to why he did not, why he deemed it as a hobby when sufficient payment and all of that were provided. And then I know I cut through most of my 3 minutes, so I'll skip what I said. Since September, in my last resubmittal, I didn't have correct documentation, so that was one reason, I believe, why they had said, if you want to sign the new lease, you have to resubmit every 3 months, which I was okay with. It was just that Sandra can be quite belittling and gaslighting, if you will, where when I would try and explain why I had these documents and ask what specifically she needed, she would push the pamphlet of APSHA in front of me and say, Betty, it's all on here. You need to read it. This is everything. But for someone self-employed who only invoices their clients, who the clients don't even want the invoices for, we don't get W-9s, W-2s, 1099s. So for this contract kind of work, which hundreds of people are doing in this community, it's really frustrating to show and prove our hard work on site and off with the office hours. And so we continue to butt heads. One more example, because I know I'm running out of time. I was explaining how I spent X amount of hours working for the filming of Real Housewives of Orange County. Well, before I could get the next sentence out, she says, Betty, that's in California. You cannot, I mean, this kind of behavior, I can go on and on with how attacking it was. And I'm from New York. I have a fairly thick skin. But it got to the point where I was in defensive mode to try and ask and prove all of the documentation that my business needed. And I am not alone. In fact, my counselor has stated that she sees numerous people who suffer from depression and anxiety over the same issues. It's not so much the jumping through hoops and that the system isn't organized to support people like us, but it's more that we don't feel supported and we don't feel that there's any sense of kindness. I could go on and on. I provided Excel spreadsheets, Venmo statements, which I didn't want to do because I know it's against HIPAA. And the first time I did, I was told that they needed to see my name at the top of the Venmo statement because I could be superimposing my name at the bottom with the picture, which is clearly me jumping inside a hula hoop. So I called Venmo and they said, we're not a bank. We don't offer your name at the top of the statement. So I went back and I said, this is the only kind of statement documentation from Venmo. I supplied all the cash deposit slips, and I was also made fun of for receiving cash. I was made fun of for providing Word documents because that wasn't professional enough. Yeah, so we're over. Yeah, so that's pretty much, you get the gist, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
What is your current situation right now?
Current situation is, so every 3 months I had to resubmit. Come July, I was to resubmit again. The last resubmittal was in, I believe, mid-April, where I met with Matthew and Sandra, and they were both, it was real fun. Do you
have another submittal coming up?
No, Matthew doesn't make eye contact.
Six of my
sure
questions,
you've realized
please,
that.
Betty.
Yeah, so, thank you, trying. It's a little emotional.
have a
I'm trying
submittal
to
coming up?
hone in. So, no, I did not believe, especially with him deeming my part-time job as a hobby, I did not believe that I would pass, and I was completely exhausted.
Okay.
So I asked
I have
for.
another question for you. I have another question
yeah.
for you, and I just need to stick to the point here.
Yeah. Ending of the lease, whatever it's
If you're not
called.
going to resubmit, are you?
I asked for ending of the lease, whatever it's called. I forgot the term. They terminated the lease early. They said that was okay because most likely that I would have been kicked out, okay? So I found another place to live.
Okay. Okay.
I have 2 jobs, work full-time, and I didn't want to do this when I was still under that.
Okay, I appreciate it. So your comments tonight are about some
Mostly
of the
having an
process,
answer.
and you've already secured new housing for yourself. So it's not necessarily something about your current housing situation, but you are just bringing these points to our attention.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And I would like an answer for why Matthew deemed my part-time job, which I have valid proof for, that I gave to him as a hobby.
Thank you. Okay.
How does this work?
We'll
Because
get a
I've never done this before.
We'll get a response to you. Thanks for bringing the question to
Within the
us.
year, within a few months, I just don't know.
Within a few
When
months,
I
for
leave,
sure.
my friends will say, so what did you, I want to know. Okay, I know you have a lot of other people. Okay.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thanks
And
a
thank
lot.
you all for making eye contact. Appreciate it. Gotcha. Okay.
Other members of the public that wish to speak, thanks a lot, Betty. Other members of the public, come on up. I'm sorry, sir, we're gonna.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, so Jason Teets, President of Timberland Bank in Aspen. I'm back again to discuss the parking and transit situation on Main Street. And first of all, I just want to thank all you guys. I was here less than a month ago, and we've already got a memo with some pretty good solutions and feedback there. So really appreciate that. And just to reintroduce the issue briefly, there's a westbound, outbound bus lane on Main Street. Starts at Garmisch Street right after Pepke Park and then runs down all the way to 6th Street, terminates right before Hickory House. And for 16 years, parking was allowed in the bus lane on Main Street during off-peak times, and during rush hour, the lane was converted to a dedicated bus lane from 3 to 6 p.m. The parking was recently removed. My business and others relied on the parking, and its removal is having some negative impacts for our operations. And I came and spoke about a month ago, like I said, to hopefully reach some sort of compromise and get some sort of parking back on Main Street. So Sam shared that memo with me, the parking and transit on Main Street memo to council from staff, and asked me to come and comment. And so I'm happy to do that on behalf of myself and some other individuals and business owners that I spoke with who are affected. The first option in that memo was by far the preferred alternative. Every single person that I spoke with is in favor of the bus lane from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. enforcement. with parking allowed on Main Street outside of those hours. You know, I think that I have a lot of other comments that I think would be beneficial to share, a lot of ideas, things like that. So I would just like to continue the conversation, hopefully get a work session or keep the ball rolling in some other fashion. And I think a lot of other people in the corridor would have a lot of things to say during such a work session as well. So too much to cover in the 2 minutes here today, but just wanted to give you some feedback on that memo and hopefully, like I said, get a work schedule or work session scheduled and keep the conversation going and find a solution that'll work for RAFTA and all the businesses and residents in the area. So thanks.
Thank you. Other members of the public that wish to speak this evening, come, if you don't mind. I think you had dibs, yeah, in the back. Okay, all right, yeah. I was gonna say, I think you guys know each other, so.
Hi, Jeff Spiroff, longtime local. Just another friendly face on Centennial mess. And I guess voice of Centennial. Just one thing I was thinking about today, another 12-hour day, 68 still going at it, producing a hell of an attraction for this town. The unresolved issues I was thinking about with City Council and Centennial reminds me of an interaction I had with Aspen High School students. I ran the food service there for 12 years. And they would always come up to me and use us as sounding boards, you know, for life's challenges. They couldn't talk to mom and dad about stuff, but they can always talk about us because we were like a resource officer, you know. They would share stuff with us. This one kid said, he said he would randomly come up to us and he complained about getting an incomplete score in a class that he failed to finish his assignment successfully. He insisted that his efforts were adequate enough to pass the course, although the criteria wasn't met satisfactorily. My Centennial neighbors, I would say, know there's been a lot of great effort with the city's part, that we're trying to work out a resolution. So in summation, it's just like, I've seen all the conversation and all the invite to come to a resolution, but it really hasn't been active, or let's say pertinent, concrete, sustainable activity towards that resolution. There's been a lot of talk, and talk's cheap, we all know that. We all been here long enough to figure out we'd like to stay, and we would like to have the confidence that everything's gonna be around us okay. Don't want the city council to have an incomplete score, like this kid was talking about, for not having adequate, successful effort. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
My name's Randy Eisen. I'm a owner at Centennial and one of the board members. And I'll just quickly reiterate what Patty was saying, that I know all the board members, myself, and all the owners of the 92 units would love to be able to problem solve and get a solution to figure out how we can rebuild the walls on Centennial. The $10 to $13 million that's been kind of estimated. I've talked to our contractor, Mark, that did most of the work so far. It's really like a remodel. Many of you are aware. It's almost really best to figure it out as time and materials. It's really unknown exactly what each wall will show as far as what's damaged inside. I think we've spent the $1.5 million we've already spent of our own money on the worst case, places when the water was intrusion, and we definitely had really difficult problems. So I'm hoping that the rest of them aren't as bad, but we'll still need to replace things. So hopefully we can find time to work with this body and maybe APSHA and maybe even the county commissioners to come up with some ideas of how we can get some funding and a way to pay that back over a period of time. And I think I mentioned, it's been going on for 36 years. Some kind of a length of repayment might be in the 20 or 30 year range, which would keep it from being, as many people have talked about here, forcing people out with their restricted incomes. It's something that we could maybe achieve, that everybody could get that done.
Quick question for you. How long have you been a member of the board?
I've been a member since '08.
So for quite
Or
some
no,
time.
'09, I'm sorry.
Quite some time. In your experience, I believe our city staff and our attorneys have been speaking mostly with your attorney primarily. In your experience, has your attorney brought to you as a full board any conversations, or does your attorney share them with your president, or do you know?
The attorney has shared with the board, what the results were of discussions.
Okay.
We did, the whole board and many of the owners did attend some council meetings and stuff back quite a ways, and that was when, we did seem to not get anywhere with staff, and the staff, I was at a couple of those meetings, and I felt the staff was not accurate about their representation.
All right. We'll see if we can get an invite to get a meeting together like you're talking about.
And I think we're all, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm pretty sure, that, there's no winner if at the lawsuit either way, it's just a lot of money. And I think we could come up with a good solution. I feel confident that would be able to make it doable in the long term.
There are 5 people that are seated on this council that would love that, so thank you so much.
I know you guys are.
Yeah, we would love that. Yeah, thanks. Other members of the public that wish to speak to council this evening? And one last call, looking in room and online. With that, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council table. And this brings us down to council member comments. I'm going to start with those that are far flung. Who's further away?
Ward is definitely further away.
All right, we'll start with you then, Bill.
Thanks, Tori. The only thing I wanted to mention tonight is I wanted to clarify some of my comments that I spoke on during our climate and environmental goals the other night. It has been said by some that I'm an anti-environmentalist, which couldn't be further from the truth. And my point that I was trying to get across is about respect for private property rights and what may be allowed and what may be legal. And when I was talking about my concerns for requirements of meeting energy goals, I was specifically speaking about existing buildings, not newly developed buildings, not buildings that are applying for permits to do major work. I was talking about an existing building. And I'll use an example, a hypothetical church that was built in the late 1800s in Aspen. What was implied, I believe, my understanding is what was implied by staff is that a building like that could be required to make improvements to its building to help the community meet its energy goals. I am not comfortable with a requirement like that, and I'm not sure that it's legal. And that is my specific concern that I was speaking about, not because I don't think that the city can and should continue to enhance its requirements for new buildings or even requirements under major renovation scenarios, but I am concerned about private property rights and a requirement on an existing building. So I just wanted to clarify that for the benefit of the community. I do care about the environment. It's meaningful to me. I want to make sure that Aspen is a place that continues to be surrounded by wonderful forests and resources, and I appreciate the natural environment that we live in. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Ward?
Let me know if I need to turn my video off. Being far away makes me realize how fortunate we are to be living in Aspen and the choices we have. I'm just thinking of the music festival, the wonderful music that's in town, available to everybody. And another great venue has been Theater Aspen. I've seen 2 plays down there, and they're they're outstanding. The quality of the productions is, I think, second to none. We have stars of Broadway that I think have stronger voices than Carole King. So as I come back, I'm going to be availing myself of those amenities, and I encourage everybody there to enjoy what is at your doorstep, and look forward to seeing you next week at the Red Brick for the community picnic.
Thank you, Ward. Sam, any comments this evening?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Tory. Number one, 5. Looking forward to the Armory remodel work session that we're having in November. That was on the information only packet, but I just wanted to mention that I'm really looking forward to it. Number 2, had a good time at the Backcountry Heavy Half hosted by the city along with the Ducky Derby. I thought that was a great community event this past Saturday. 3, City Council picnic, as Ward said, Thursday, August 17th. I have it on my email as Galena Plaza, just outside, not the Red Brick, so hopefully that can be clarified.
Sorry, Sam, you're right. I'm wrong.
Okay, just double checking. Last one, I know we're going to talk about on September 12th, but the building performance standard guidelines, I understood, but I was disappointed that they're going to be delayed by a whole year. Just seemed like a long time to delay something, but that's maybe bureaucracy and just needing to get the data we need for that. And then the last thing was the parking on Main Street. I would like to have a work session on that to discuss the options presented in the information only packet and see what a compromise solution we could come to.
Thank you. Real quick, just checking in with other council members. Are you interested in continuing the discussion about the parking on Main Street? Does it rise to a level of work session for you? Sarah, do we need a work session to discuss this if council is looking for some relief there? We got in an information only memo. How would you like us to pursue this if council members are interested in it?
I recommend council needs to give me direction on the record, so whether you choose to do that in a regular meeting or work session is up to you. I would encourage a work session so that RAFTA can be in the room to have an honest conversation with you about headway times and how it impacts, although you do have a statement from the CEO and the Chief Operations Director of RAFTA articulating its position.
Thank you. So then I'm looking for other members of council. Are you interested in putting this on our work session agenda and continuing this conversation?
I personally am not, but it sounds like Jason did receive some options in a memo from staff, and I'm hopeful that some compromise options can be reached that do address some of the needs of the businesses and also help with our traffic flow issues.
So to clarify, staff is not going to change anything without direction from the council, and your August 8th, your informational only packet for this meeting provided about a 5-page memo on the topic for you.
Ward or John?
I read the memo and I don't feel the need to schedule a work session for this.
I agree with John.
Okay, I don't necessarily need a work session, but I do think something should be changed here. No parking at any time on Main Street, I think, works against our goals of moving commercial accessibility down Main Street in a completely constricted core. So I am for some changes here. It's interesting that the person that's coming to us is from a business that really not relies on, but is availed for 5-minute or 10-minute visits for somebody to run in. So I am interested in talking about this more, but I guess I don't need it at a work session at this time. We will go, I would ask that council members review your information only memo, and this could come back up from Sam or myself at another meeting.
I'm a little confused though. In the information only packet, it said to ask for a work session to move this forward. I'm not familiar with how this is going to move forward without a work session.
As Sarah just said, we don't have to have a work session on it. We can bring it back up at a regular meeting. It's
My process
recommended.
request and recommendation is a work session, but you're not required to take my recommendation.
No, that's fair. I guess I'd just speak to my feelings that I feel like this is going to get lost without a work session.
Only if you lose it.
Fair enough, but
You just heard, I'm not going to waste more time on this. We just heard from a majority of council that did not care to schedule a work session on this right now. That's work session time that we may not need to use on an item like this. If we want to keep moving it forward, we can keep moving it forward.
understood.
Thanks. I'm trying to think if there was something else in your comments that I wanted to respond to. Is there anything that you needed?
No, just.
Okay.
I was talking about the other thing you might have wanted to comment on was the building performance standards being delayed a year, but we'll talk about that September 12th. All the other things we're talking about events.
Okay, thank you. No further comments then? Thanks. John?
Yeah, I'm just going to read a quick article from today's Associated Press. Now that last month's sizzling numbers are all in, the European Climate Monitoring Organization made it official. July 2023 was Earth's hottest month on record by a wide margin. July's global average temperature of 16.95 degrees Celsius, 62.5 Fahrenheit, was a third of a degree, 0.6 of a degree Fahrenheit higher than the previous record set in 2019. Copernicus Climate Change Service, that's the organization that released this study, announced this Tuesday. Normally, global temperature records are broken by hundredths or tenths of a degree, so this margin is highly unusual. The United States has now had a record 15 different weather disasters that have caused at least $1 billion in damage this year, the NOAA announced Tuesday. It's the most mega disasters through the first 7 months of the year since the agency tracked such things starting in 1980, with the agency adjusting figures for inflation. Quote, these records have dire consequences for both people and the planet exposed to ever more frequent and intense extreme events, said Copernicus Deputy Director Samantha Burgess. There have been deadly heat waves in the southwestern United States and Mexico, Europe, and Asia. The previous single-day heat record was set in 2016 and tied in 2022. From July 3rd, each day has exceeded that record. It's been so warm that Copernicus and the World Meteorological Organization made the unusual announcement that it was likely the hottest month days before it was over. Quote, we should not care about July because it's a record, but because it won't be a record for long, said Imperial College of London climate scientist Frederic Otto. It's an indicator of how much we have changed the climate. We are living in a very different world, one that our societies are not adapted to live in very well. I hope that everybody here sees the decisions we make through an environmental lens, because we are in uncharted territory. Thanks.
Thanks, John. My comments this evening will hopefully be brief. First of all, I just want to thank everybody that participated, both the sponsors, the Aspen Golf Club, and those tournament players. This past weekend, we had the Mayor's Cup Golf Tournament, which these days is going to benefit mental health in our community. I want to use this as an opportunity to once again let people know about Aspen Strong, which is rebranded to Headquarters. Their website is headq.org, and the Aspen Hope Center. Aspen Hope Center is a crisis hotline for anybody in our community. Let's all keep remembering that mental health is a priority in our community and in individual lives, and we need to stay vigilant with it. You know, we went through the pandemic, which gave us 3 years of kind of universal mental health struggles. And as we come out of that, some folks are doing better than others. Let's recognize that and be patient, but also let's help them get the help that they may want. Again, that's headq.org. And that is an organization that will help you find the counseling or services that you need. And not only that, but can help you with some of the financial needs that you might have, making counseling available to everybody in our community. The Aspen Hope Center, of course, is a crisis hotline. It is okay to call for help when you need it. Let's all remember that. I do want to say one big thanks, though, to three sponsors in particular: Altec Steislinger, the St. Regis Aspen, and the Snow Lodge at the St. Regis. Those people really stepped up to help mental health in our community, and I want to say a big thank you to all of them. The other item that I wanted to bring up tonight was regarding APSHA, but more specifically about category sales units. We recently at council table made a change to the purchase opportunities at Burlingame 3. We eliminated the opportunity for community members to bid up a category, if council members will remember that. I have gotten a couple of asks from a few people regarding Category 1. We do not build or produce much Category 1, if any, and we don't really have our sights set on it. I'm wondering if this council and these council members that decided not to allow bidding up would be interested in furthering the conversation around at Burlingame 3, allowing Category 1 to bid up to Category 2. I'm not suggesting Category 2, 3, 4, or others be allowed to bid up, but I am concerned, and I have heard from our community, that there is a lack of availability for Cat 1. Now, as many of you know, there are issues with this. One issue with it is just the ability to afford being at Burlingame, HOA dues, the financing that it requires to do those purchases may be beyond some of Category 1 earned income ability. But I think that perhaps this is an opportunity to allow Category 1 people to move up to Category 2, incentivize their moving up to Category 2. So again, I'm just asking council members if there's a desire from any of you to revisit that or have more conversation around allowing Category 1 to bid up to Category 2 at the Burlingame project. I'll start with those that are in here in the room. Sam, any interest in this conversation?
For the reasons that you stated, I'm not interested, and it's more surrounded by the conversation we've had about HOA common dues and being able to afford the property. So I'm happy to stick with what we're doing right now.
Thank you. John?
I'll let Ward answer this first, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree that we should have uniformity across the system. I think that Category 1 with as Sam mentioned, the HOA dues and everything associated with, first of all, well, no, the short answer is no, I don't want to have Category 1 spit up to Category 2s. I want to keep uniformity in the system. And being housing burden in a Category 1, moving up to a 2, I think, without some kind of family wealth is not, I think it's a real burden.
Bill, your input?
No, but thank you for bringing this up for consideration.
And John?
Yeah, I think I agree with what you've heard from citizens, and it's kind of a touchy subject, but I'm going to stick with what I said before. I really don't want people getting in over their heads.
I appreciate that. I would say that this is one of those issues that's a very delicate issue, but I think that this is part of the problem with our system, is that it can, at times, cap people for longer than we want to. If you don't give somebody the opportunity to move up, they certainly will not. As well, I would say that on this board, currently, I think I'm the only one that's actually living in affordable housing and works with APSHA. And I think that there's maybe some more insight that we could have here. But I appreciate your input, and I'm sure we will discuss this again in another 12 months, perhaps. Those are my comments for this evening. We'll move down. I think that brings us to agenda amendments, which I didn't see any this evening.
No, but staff would like to address some issues with Resolution 114 that's in the consent agenda when you get to that point.
So you want us to pull it for discussion?
Yes, please.
Okie dokie. City manager's comments this evening?
None this evening, thank you.
Thank you. And board reports tonight. I'll start with those that are away. Ward?
I had no board reports since the last meeting.
Thank you. Bill?
None from me, thank you.
John?
I don't believe I had any either. Did we talk about the core architecture?
No, we did not. It was right before that was the last one.
You want to cover that?
It was a great event.
Yes, it was.
Hearing from all the different architects and people in that background, public, private, commercial. It was at the Aspen Art Museum. It was a state of the art of architecture. And I don't know, it's very cutting edge, and I'm kind of at a loss to say like the specifics, but I just remember it being very cutting edge and like having a lot of wonderful ideas about how to make net neutral buildings on so many different levels as far as public, private, and commercial go.
I was really heartened to see that the Colorado Association of Architects is actually looking at CLTs as a viable way of building. There hasn't been much progress in low carbon concrete yet, but I was able to ask some architects if we could do more at this table for them. They said, no, you've done quite enough. Anyway.
Here you go.
It was a great event.
Any others? Anything else?
We got a RAFTA meeting on Thursday.
We sure do.
So.
And will you be?
Online.
You will?
Mm-hmm.
Great. I may have to leave before it's over. I'm not sure. So I appreciate you being there. As Sam was just saying, we have a RAFTA board meeting this Thursday morning, 8:30. I also will be enjoying a Board of Health meeting in the afternoon this Thursday. But the real board report that I'd like to comment on is yesterday's CAST Housing Task Force. And Ward was nice enough to sit in with me on that. Right now, we are talking about a lot of legislative stuff regarding housing. We're mostly focused on the conversation around vacancy taxes and RET taxes being available to those that cannot currently do them. They really are looking for any financing mechanisms that we can think of to help in this, but really that's the conversation that was around yesterday. We actually have scheduled to meet, instead of next month, we're gonna meet in 2 weeks because we'd like to get perhaps some position papers on some things that are going on a state legislative level. That includes, was it 319, 318, what was last year? The bill, the House bill. Yeah, you too, huh? Okay, I'll go with 12. 312, which we do think will be resurfacing in some form or another. We want to put comment in on that. 213, ooh, sugar. 213. As well as State Bill 1255, which actually did pass. So the Housing Task Force out of CAST is still moving forward. And like I said, we're actually moving up to have another meeting in 2 weeks. That is board reports for me at this time. And I'll use this opportunity, this is not a board report, but yes, as was mentioned by Ward earlier, so the community is aware, next Thursday, the 17th, right out here in Galena Plaza, start time is about 4:30 p.m., the community picnic. Come on over and mingle with your neighbors. With that, we'll come down to the consent calendar. We've already got a request to pull 114. Are there other items that members wish to pull for discussion? Ward?
No, I don't think so. I reviewed them and I'm comfortable with them.
Okay. I'm going to ask for 84. I'd like some discussion around 84. We have 114. Any others? I don't see it.
120, I have a brief question and comment on.
And 120 then. We'll take these out of order. Let's start with Jim True's request of Resolution 114, amended and restated power purchase agreement between City of Aspen and Tri-County Water Conservancy District.
Kate and Justin are here to discuss this. There were some issues with the actual contract that's attached. There are some changes. They're very minor, but we wanted to outline the changes and ask that the council approve Resolution 114 with the contract and the changes that they are going to show from the contract. Very minor, but Kate and Justin can go over them.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Tory. So there's only what we would consider two small clerical changes to the contract. The first one is the termination date. It was the incorrect date. It needs to say April 30th, 2034. And then in Exhibit 3 in the table of rates, we need to shift down the summer rates to where they start in summer of 2024. We have spoken with Tri-County Water Conservancy District and their staff and attorneys. They are okay with the changes, and Kate has been shepherding us through this process as well.
If I could, Mayor, really these errors were related to bad math on my part. Apparently, I didn't learn how to count correctly. In any event.
Glad you're not in finance then.
Me too. This agreement was for a 10-year period. So basically, you have an agreement already with Tri-County. We entered into that agreement in 2012. It was for the purchase of the output of their energy for the winter months. Pursuant to that agreement, we had a right of first refusal to purchase summer months when they became available. All we're doing is amending that agreement to include the summer months. So now we're purchasing energy output for the full year. And where the math came into play is it's for the next 10 years. That contract will end, the original termination, it was October, but if you count 10 years from this summer, from the summer we begin purchasing, which would be 2024, we will not be entitled to purchase summer energy past April of 2034. So we just wanted to clarify that it didn't run through the summer of 2034. In that chart, the Exhibit 3 sets forth basically the prices for those 10 years that are going to be subject of this agreement. So I hope that clarifies it.
They've agreed to everything. We just haven't gotten it signed yet, but what we're proposing is that Resolution 114 approve the contract with those amendments.
Thank you. Ward, did you have a question there?
Yeah, I did. I had a couple of notes on this one. As a follow-up, I did try to do some research on what the transmission loss was. It's mentioned in wheeling charges and transmission loss, and I'm seeing that it's between 4% and 6% is a transmission loss. As I read this, I understand that Aspen is in essence becoming a reseller of electricity. I could be wrong on this, but
yeah, Ward.
Can we just purchase what we need instead of the whole amount? Because if we're selling it at 24,000 less than we're buying it for, it doesn't seem to be a good business model. And if we could just purchase what we need and let Mean buy directly from Tri-County, that would save us $24K. So Justin, what your comments on that? And also two other items. All of the charges that we reviewed last night are reflected in our purchasing the power purchase agreement from Tri-County. And I know that Holy Cross has voluntary upcharge to buy 100% renewable. And my question is, what is the premium that our electric utilities customers are paying to get 100% renewable electricity?
Okay. Ward, I'll try to answer all those, and if I don't get them all, please ask again. But for this amendment, Aspen has first right of refusal, so it's purchasing all of that energy. And you are correct, this is more energy than what we need at certain times of the year. And so Mean is a perfect partner with this, in that they have a higher load in the summer that we can work together with them. And you will see contracts, if you approve tonight, with Mean before the end of September, where it talks a little bit more about the cost sharing, the splits of energy. And so there's benefits there in some of the months where we will be purchasing less energy than traditional. But you are correct. In essence, we'll be selling that unused energy back to Mean. We also think that is a benefit, as it adds more renewables to their portfolio as well.
I'm sorry.
In regards, I know the numbers are very confusing in this packet because there's many factors, and you mentioned a few of them, the wheeling and transmission costs. But while it says that it's a net additional cost to the city of $24,000, staff, we estimate that we'll actually save upwards of $112,000 a year, potentially more with some of these other fixed costs and wheeling charges. So this would not be at a loss. We would be saving money, and one aspect of that, Ward, would be we would be buying less traditionally what was called wind from Mean, what we call, they have now transitioned, called that the green rate. So with this increase, we'll be buying less of their energy that's at a higher price than this Ridgeway hydroelectric. And so, go ahead.
I'm just curious, if we have $560,000 worth of energy to sell, why don't we sell it to Mean for $560 instead of $536, or am I reading this wrong?
So that I may need a little help with that. Tyler, Phil, 1 second. Sorry.
Hey, Ward, Tyler Christoff, Deputy Director of Public Works. That cost is a direct pass-through cost. So the purchase price that we buy this from Tri-County is the exact price that Mean pays for the energy. So there's no gain or loss from that resale.
And then Ward, your last question is, Aspen customers paying a premium. I would say that, we are 100% renewable utility, so we're not adding any more additional costs, or there's no extra premiums. It's all the same cost for the same customer classes.
Yeah, but I think it costs more to buy 100% renewable than it does to buy fossil fuel. Yep. And I'm not advocating that we exit the strategy of 100% renewable, but just for transparency's sake, I know that I'm not on the Aspen grid, I'm on Holy Cross, but we have a voluntary upcharge to buy 100% renewable. So I think it costs more to buy 100% renewable than it does from the general, combination of coal and natural gas that Holy Cross still uses to generate electricity.
Yeah.
So is there actually a premium that our customers are paying that they wouldn't be paying if we were selling electricity that was generated by filthy coal plants?
Ward, Tyler, again, there is a slight differential between Mean's kind of mixed portfolio and Mean's green rate. Using kind of big round numbers here, cost per megawatt for a mixed portfolio with carbon resources is somewhere in the neighborhood of $41 a megawatt before wheeling and fixed costs, versus the green rate, which is about $43 a megawatt and some change without wheeling and fixed rates. So give or take $2 a megawatt is, I guess, the premium. I would also add that gap continues to close as more renewables come into the marketplace.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I approve of this. I just wanted to get that out in the open.
Thanks, Ward. I have one question for you. Did you ask them if they'd be interested in trading for a turbine by any chance?
We've asked everybody that we know of that owns.
Yeah, maybe if they had a little extra room or something, maybe.
We've had a few suitors, but no takers.
Thank you, guys. At this time, I would ask a council member for a motion on Resolution 114 as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 114, series of 2023, amended and restated power purchase agreement between City of Aspen and Tri-County Water Conservancy District.
You need to say as amended?
Did you use the word as amended?
I did, amended and restated.
Then I'll second it.
Thank you.
Oh, that is different. As amended.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for resolution number 114, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. Thank you, guys. I asked for resolution number 84. This is the Arts and Cultural Fund Asset and Acquisition Assistance Grant Funding Recommendations. Thank you so much, and thanks for being here. Appreciate your extra time and energy for our community. I love it. So originally, I wanted to ask a question because of some things that I actually spoke to John about just recently, unrelated to this item on our agenda. And that was about some of the funding grants that we let out this past year, and we had a couple recipients that saw sizable decreases in what they received compared to the previous year. And then, you know, thinking about the fact that we started this kind of new category and trying to impact this in a positive aspect, I was looking at the grants, and there wasn't a whole bunch of detail for me about, you know, what they are for and stuff. There were a couple of highlights that were there, but when I saw that some of the organizations there are multi-million-dollar organizations that were taking this new funding stream that we created, and yet some past recipients really saw a decrease this year. It just didn't sit right with me. And so I wanted to take this as an opportunity to both just make sure that the council was all having the same conversation, as well as check in on this. It's a pilot program, it's new, so I just, you know, I guess I wanted some feedback about, you know, how do we think this process went? Did the applications that we receive match up with maybe our expectations? And when I say our, I definitely mean you all. As council, I feel like was really an approving body, but not really in the molding and shaping of this exact category of grants. Then the other questions I wanted to know, if you can share with me or not, I don't know, but my question would be, did Grassroots Television apply for one of these asset and acquisition grants or not? So that's it. I just wanted to have some conversation around this because it's always, this is, you know, an incredibly difficult supply and demand question. There's tons of demand and there's not tons of supply. So, I mean, I would look at Ann.
No, I was actually going to say, it's probably more appropriate for John to start when you're talking about the distribution of funds as opposed to previous years, if you don't mind.
I'll kick things off, and then you feel free to chime in, please. So I thank you, Mayor, for those questions, and I think I got all of them down, but like Justin said, please let me know if I missed one. So the first question was around funding streams and funding sources. So I want to be clear that the grassroots and a few of these other organizations that have maybe received less funding than historical are through our community nonprofit program, which is funded through a different revenue stream than is supported by this program. So that's would be a separate conversation around how funding resources are allocated in our grant program, but currently we're not able to share those.
Just to clarify here, it is all from the Arts and Culture Fund. However, the way the council has appropriated the dollars is between two different programs within the Arts and Culture grants.
Well, so grassroots specifically is funded by the community nonprofit.
That's right. I'm sorry. They are funded out of the general fund. Thank you for clarifying that for me, John.
So the second point was around wealthy organizations, which I really appreciate that question, because I think that gets to the core of what the grant program is for, and that is primarily what we're trying to do through council direction, is create the most positive impact in the community that we can with our grant program. And as of right now, that does not take into account need. It just takes into account who is asking for funding and who is using that funding to the best possible use in our community. So that can be both wealthy organizations and or organizations with fewer resources.
Can I ask you a question about that? Is need not included in criteria because that's hard to pin down, or because that would lead to a bunch of other questions about organizational structure and management? Why do we not consider need?
I think the fundamental reason why we don't consider need is because need within the grant program and the requests that we're receiving doesn't have a direct impact on an organization's ability to have positive community impact through what they're requesting. So whether a wealthy organization is requesting new funds to do a project having a community benefit, or a smaller organization is requesting new funds to have a grant as well, doesn't really make a difference in the overall impact in the community, because it's new funds being put to beneficial use in either case. If council would like to have a conversation around whether need should be a criteria, I think we could schedule a future work session to do so.
I'll add.
Go ahead.
You done? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's very important to remember that the Health and Human Services, community nonprofits, and arts and culture come from three very distinct funds. So when you see inequities between Health and Human Services and arts and culture, that's somewhat dependent on the funds available, and specifically the history of what funds have been available and what they're used to applying for. All that is still kind of evolving, people realizing how much money is available and how they can apply for it. If you are speaking to these specific, the two pilot programs, and was that where you were saying that the wealth comes into play, or were you talking about the whole arts and culture?
I was just talking about this one particular.
Okay. And again, it's important to understand the two programs, and it is, I forgot to say, good evening, council. Nice to see everybody. These are really exciting programs. These are filling gaps. They are grants that you don't see very often. And I'll just talk about the asset and acquisition that we're looking at tonight, not the Artist Fellowship Fund, which has been approved already. Most grants are that are available are for programming, and very few grants are available for bricks and mortar. But as you look at it, how are you going to fulfill your programming goals and needs if your bricks and mortar aren't in good shape? There are some reasons why people aren't as anxious to fund a new boiler, a new light efficient system, or efficient lighting system, sorry. They're not quite as attractive or visible as a new program. But this is what we're doing, and we're helping these groups in town with items that they cannot get funded through, no matter who the donors are, many of those donations are restricted, and they can't be used for these very, very practical uses, which are imperative if the nonprofit wants to function well. So that's where I see this. This is filling a gap, a very obvious gap in grants that are available. And it's, again, I say it's very exciting that Aspen is open to doing this and supporting its arts and culture nonprofits this way. The other fact is that the citizens did vote to increase the support for arts and culture. And so we were exploring unique ways and ways to support arts and culture that you don't normally see, and came up with these 2 pilot programs. And they are pilot programs. We'll see how they go for a year. And if council's satisfied with them, we'll continue them. If not, it was a good try.
Yeah. You know, and I guess where it intersects for me is that council was able to approve budgetarily $250,000 for these, but we could have also increased the grant funding in one of our other categories, and so we didn't have, and you know, and this is with all respect, I don't want review. I do not want to go over it. I don't want to, but I'm only bringing this to you because the people that I represent have asked these questions of me, you know, and so council doesn't really get the opportunity, and we try to avoid that opportunity of coming back after the grant program and saying, hey, let's give these guys more because we don't like it. We don't really want to be in that position across the table. So I wanted to bring it up at this time, that I just had some questions around it. I know it's evolving. We've made an overhaul and improvements to our grant program, so I recognize that this is growing. These are pilot programs, and that we will be sharpening our spear as we move forward. I get it. I just needed to bring this up because I think I want council to be on the same page with this. This process very much operates somewhat independently of us for good reason. And so I just wanted to make sure that we are having the same conversation. And when this comes around next year in the next grant cycle, that if there's any questions from you all about this gap that maybe is perceived by us, that we can maybe address it in our next go-rounds and the like.
Great. Just one point of clarification, Mayor. These funds could currently only be reallocated towards the general arts and culture core grant program, and it couldn't go to community.
These funds, correct, but yeah, other funds are available.
Of course. Would you like me to answer your question around expectations? We didn't, and whether those were met?
Yes, I would love to know how you guys felt. I mean, Ann kind of already just answered it. She's saying that this is something that has been identified as a gap that we're looking to fill. From her comments, I take that she was happy with the process, that she sees a need here that is being fulfilled. So yeah. I think she kind of answered
Okay,
it.
Great.
Yeah. And then the last question I had was, I was wondering if grassroots participated in this or not, but I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, I can, and they did not apply.
They did not apply for this?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Did you have any comments that you wanted to share? All right, well, it's nice to see you, though. Nice to see you. Yeah, pleasure.
I had a comment, Tori.
Yeah, go ahead, Ward. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Hi, good seeing you all there. And I'm sorry I missed you last time around. We'll hook up when I get back.
Thanks, Ward.
We have 6 groups that the city is granting $241,812. And my question was, if it's possible for somehow to communicate to the community how they're benefiting from these 6 grants. What's the return on investment on this? I know they're arts groups, and arts bring a tremendous amount of money to our community, but what are we getting? What's the community getting for these 6 grants?
Yeah, so I can dig into a little bit more around what each grant is in line to do with the funds. I think something else that I want to clarify is each of these applicants, as a condition of being able to apply for future grants with the City of Aspen, is required to complete an impact and outcome report, which really digs into the community benefit that's specifically derived from each grant application. So, while of course we don't have that information for these grants yet. That is something that we will be able to come back to council and share the success stories from individual grants once these projects are completed.
Yeah, John, I'm not looking for a report back tonight, but just report back at some time in the future what we're getting from that.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ward. Sarah? Yeah.
I would encourage the council, if you're looking at changing the criteria on this, is that you use your grant steering committee to review that and bring you back recommendations. That's really part of what they're there for, is to support the council in evaluating programmatic pieces. If you recall, we went through a very intense process using Point B Consulting to really improve this program based upon best practices. And so it's based upon how well respondents respond to the criteria. And we provide some informational training in case we have someone who's never applied for a grant before to help them feel empowered to compete in that process. And so if you want us to consider changes, or if the council's considering changes to their grant program that is based upon things like endowment sizes or anything like that, I'd encourage you to have a motion to your steering committee to review that for you and come back to you.
Is the steering committee and others are considering things like, I mean, I would look to them before I'd look to us. So as we're reviewing what we've been doing over the last year or two, are you looking for program improvements and such? So yeah, I feel.
Can I get back to you after August 10th? We're having pretty much our first follow-up meeting.
Great, yeah, absolutely.
But definitely we need input from council if there are issues, questions. But it's a great committee now, and we have set up monthly meetings, so we can really go into depth on what's been a success and what hasn't, and again, address anything that you guys want us to take a look at.
Thank you for that. Bill?
Thanks. Thanks all for your hard work on this. I just wanted to share my agreement with Ward on disseminating the information of what the community is paying for here and what it might be getting in return. So I don't know if that's a press release or an interview with the newspaper or a newsletter, what it might be, but we gave $50,000 to Aspen Art Museum. Here's what they're doing with the money. Kind of bullet point form. I think would go a long way in the community.
Thank you.
Bill.
Thanks.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your input and being here tonight. Thank you, Ann.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thanks.
We had a quick question on resolution number 120. This is the contract with Integrity. And Bill, you had questions here. This is the water storage tanks at Truscott 1 and 2.
Yeah, just curious. I'm not sure who I'm addressing this question to.
Cindy Christensen is joining us.
Great. Hey, Cindy. I'm just curious why not sort of approach this either building by building or unit by unit rather than do the entire project at once. From my understanding, these are sort of separate pieces of infrastructure. They're not tied together to one another unless I'm misunderstanding something. It would be surprising to me that they're all failing at exactly the same rate. So kind of curious if that's what the report showed and why tackle it as a whole rather than in some kind of phasing.
Well, there's an economy of scale, for one thing, by tackling all of them at the same time. They were also put into the projects all at the same time. So every single one of these, except for, actually, every single one of these are in basically a new building that were all built at the same time. We've had a couple of different needs assessments, and even 5 years ago, we were told that we should start to replace these tanks. And because they're all the same age, we felt that because of the economies of scales, it just made sense to do all of them at the same time. They're not in units, they're in common, they're in like a storage space in each of the buildings that are noted. Like the T2, which is only Building 20 and Building 50, there are more buildings than that, but they have different systems. But the T1, when they were all built, they were all built at the same time, and that's one of the reasons why the needs assessment said that we should be replacing all of them at this point in time.
Got it. I understand that. Do we have any proposals that demonstrate the economies of scale? Meaning, do you have a phased proposal showing that it costs more to do it, costs meaningfully more to do it?
We
in a
do
phased
not.
approach?
We approached it that this made more sense to replace all of them at the same time.
Another key part of this is the disruption to water service to the building. And so minimizing the tenant impacts has been another consideration in the timing of this. We have kicked this can down the road, as Cindy mentioned, for a little while here, particularly getting through COVID. We had initially thought we'd be doing this sooner than now, quite frankly. Certainly council's pleasure if you want to take another approach, but balancing both the what we foresee as all of these units failing and trying to be ahead of that for tenants and the tenant disruption, why we're proposing this approach. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Have any of the units actually failed at this point?
Well,
Or are they just leaking?
They haven't, but there's a possibility that they could. And with the new system, we also have a lot of complaints that the water pressure isn't the same. Sometimes we do lose heat on these, and they're starting to be a little bit more common than not. So by replacing these, we're hoping that will stop all those complaints that we've been getting.
Interesting. Okay, listen, I understand maintaining property, and I understand when there's pieces of property that need to be replaced or repaired significantly, and I defer to your judgment on that. I just want to be doing these things intelligently, and I want to make sure that when we say there's an economy of scale, that we know that there's an economy of scale. I mean, I'd be curious, I don't know if there's others who are interested in this, but I'd be curious to ask Integrity, what if we replaced 11 at this point? What would it cost us? And is it 50% or is it 55% or 60% of the total cost? We don't have that data right now, so it's I want to make sure that not just on this project, but in all projects, that we're being thoughtful and responsible with taxpayer dollars.
Can I comment on that, Bill? I know that it costs a lot more to do an emergency repair. We've seen that with our corrugated metal pipes that Pete calls corroded metal pipes instead. But I remember one emergency where two intersections had to be redone on an emergency basis, and it cost a lot more. I wish that I knew when my hot water heater was going to fail, I would buy a new one a week before. But just, we don't have smart hot water heaters to tell us when they're going to fail. And I think it's better to replace them before they fail. But I understand you don't want to replace them if you're going to get 3 more years out of them. But we don't know if we're going to get 3 more years or 3 more weeks or 3 more days.
Thanks, Ward. Bill, I appreciate your comments here. I think it's definitely food for thought going forward for new projects. On this one, I think what I saw was a $240,000 contract, I believe. I don't know that there's much savings there. I would actually, I kind of agree with what Ward is hinting at, is that the fact is if we split this in two, it may end up costing us more in the long run, not just because of a loss of economy of scale, but because of what's coming in the future. Costs don't seem to be going down. I would say on this contract that we have in front of us, I would love to see it met. You know, my concern with this contract more would be that we don't come into cost overruns and change orders on any of this, but that actually if we are to sign this contract, that it is binding and that Integrity can do it. That would be fantastic. But I appreciate your comments as we look towards procurement opportunities in the future.
Yeah, more of a global comment. I mean, I don't have tremendous opposition to this approach, but I did want to make it clear that my expectations are that we're being thoughtful and not just doing, large scale projects because one unit is failing of many.
No, and to clarify this, and on many of these capital assessments, there is outside expertise that is utilized to verify staff's initial thinking. So it's quite common that we have building engineers assist us with that work. So I don't want anyone walking away think that there's not due diligence. There's significant amount of due diligence before these capital projects come forward to ensure that, one, they're needed, first of all, two, that they're done in a responsible cost manner and a responsible project delivery manner to our obligation. So I just feel like with the way this conversation is going, I need to go on the record to make clear that is part of our process with most of our procurement activities surrounding the buildings.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's great, Sarah. And I was not accusing anyone of any particular behavior or omission. I'm just particularly sensitive to it, and I want to be thoughtful and make sure that we're doing those things. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. With that, guys, I could take a motion for approval. This is resolution number 84, resolution number 113, resolution number 118, and resolution 120.
I'll make a motion to pass the consent calendar of the resolutions you just mentioned, minus the one we already approved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Further discussion. Thanks to all staff members that are here for consent calendar items. We appreciate your participation.
Always.
Always. Could we have a roll call vote for the consent calendar minus resolution 114, which we've already handled?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. No notice of call-ups this evening, no first readings of ordinances. That brings us down to our public hearings. We have ordinance number 10. This is the Lumberyard Affordable Housing Project.
All right. Cool. Good evening, council members, Mayor Tory. My name is Kevin Reyes, planner with the Community Development Department. We are asking council to continue this item this evening. I'm going to just jump into sort of the background of kind of where we are. City Council approved ordinance number 10 at first reading to set a public hearing for June 6th. If you recall, at that hearing, the applicant team, Chris Everson and Cushing Terrell, presented, and then after that, council continued the hearing to June 13th, at which point the applicant team continued their presentation, and staff, myself, made a presentation on this item. And council went into a discussion and decided to hold a work session. So a work session was held on July 24th, and at that hearing, or at that work session rather, council directed the applicant and directed staff to make some project modifications and to come up with some revisions to the ordinance to make it a little bit more flexible.
I'm just going to step in there for a minute, Kevin. We set the areas for debate and for additional information to come back. There is no specific direction in terms of decision-making at the council at this July 24th work session, and you're scheduled for 2 more work sessions this month on the project. Thank you.
Cool, thanks for clarifying. So we do have a couple more work sessions coming up. So with that said, staff is going to continue working with the applicant to make some changes to the proposed project. We had a hearing scheduled for this evening, and we are requesting that council continue the hearing to September 12th to provide staff and the applicant team a bit more time to work together and come back with a proposal.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from council members at this time? I mean, there are no public necessarily in attendance, but we don't need to open it today, and it can wait.
No, you can continue it.
Yeah, okay.
What it needs to be is continue to a date certain, and with a time when you state that date, whomever makes the motion.
Okay. Understood. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to continue this till the September 12th.
At?
right, at 5 p.m., regular meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? My further discussion, thank you guys. You know, nobody likes delay, nobody likes pushing things down the road a little bit, but I really appreciate the extra work that everybody is doing on this, giving it full consideration. We're gonna move forward with an absolute great project, I hope, that we can get to something that is beneficial for our community. So I just really appreciate all the extra hard work that's going on with this, and we'll see what we come up with at our next meeting. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, I want to agree with you, Tori, that this is the largest public works project the city of Aspen has ever done, and it deserves our full consideration
Oh, there he went.
Ah, you made it so.
of the continuance.
Thank you so much, Ward. We have a motion and a second, and could we have a roll call vote for continuing the public hearing of ordinance number 10 to September 12th at 5 p.m.?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Guth,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Rose.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote for adjournment?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Guth,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Rose.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
I'm a yes.
See you all next week.
Ciao, ciao, Ward.
Ciao, ciao.
Are we back in person on Monday?
Never left, Sam. I never left.
I know you.